When I decided to leave Kit, it was the first act of progressive surrender. Was I good at being a COO? Yes. Did it feel good to be a COO? Absolutely not. I was burnt to a crisp by the time I left. I charge $37.50 a month for 2 hours of coaching. I try and keep it to 12. I find that I'm able to provide the best service at that level. So you can do easy math. 12 times $37.50 is $45,000 a month. That one change, sending that voice note versus not sending the voice note, 3x the number of people who reached out to work together. The stuff we think about as marketing, I didn't do any of that. I wanted to get full, not get famous. And that's an important distinction. This is what I love about coaching. Like, what a beautiful conversation. Every time this happens, it makes me tear. Like, I have tears in my eyes because.
All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of The Real Coach Show. I am joined today by Barrett Brooks, who I'm very excited to have on for many reasons, which you guys are going to figure out today. But the main one being, he is going to help us unlock the deep things that stop coaches from building million-dollar businesses. And it's not tactics, it's not strategies, because if that was the thing holding us back, Barrett, I'm sure everyone would be a millionaire by now. And in me building my business, as I was just talking to you about, it wasn't that I didn't know what I was talking about. It's that I was in my own way. So guys, if that sounds like your story, and I'm pretty sure it does after having talked to, tons of coaches on here, then we're going to dive in. But Barrett, first of all, thank you so much. I want to start with what I usually start with, which is, what is the problem that you solved so well in your life that you're like, I'm going to solve this for other people as a coach?
So it's interesting you framed the question that way. First of all, thanks for having me. And secondly, I actually think that my coaching is maybe more based on the problems I would like to solve in my life and not necessarily the answers that I've found. But to the extent that I've solved anything, it's that my curiosity, my questions, and my listening have been the core skill set that have been my guiding light through everything that I've done throughout my career. And when I thought about what is it that people come to me for just naturally outside of my work, outside of pure friendship, is they come to me when they have hard situations that they're faced with and when they need the chance to be vulnerable and open and not be judged for whatever it is that they're facing, and really to get in touch with their own inner knowing about where they want to go and what's important to them. And I think I've always been a pretty good partner in helping friends think through what's important to them without projecting my own priorities or my own ideas onto it. And I think that's basically what I do in coaching as well. It's help people get in touch with what they already know to be true or what they are already great at. And in order to do that, it's about removing all of the layers of cruft that get in the way along the way. So that's how I think about my coaching.
That is a fascinating frame, because my wife said to me the other day, she said, you have a skill where you can use your vulnerability to inspire and encourage people in a way that makes them want to do more. And I thought, how would I monetize that skill? And it's like, oh, it's just coaching. Like, that's literally, it's coaching, it's building in public, it's being the guy to go first, it's building communities like you were just telling me you do as well. And so I think it's fascinating to do that, because a lot of people I talk to fall into it having solved a really major problem. And they're very specific coaches perhaps. But I think with executive coaching, like with what you're doing, it sounds like the skills themselves are not, I went through this particular transformation and now I'm great at it, which it sounds like you also are, but I have this real inherent skill. And I'm curious where how did you know that? You left being a COO at Kit, which I forgot to say. You did a couple other things before and after that, some very successful things in the business marketplace. But to go now to like executive coaching, what was that transition like, leaving Kit and deciding this was actually going to be the thing that you pour your energy into after trying a couple of little things along the way?
I mean, I think if I have a core or inherent talent, it would be seeing people at the soul level. It would be seeing them at the truest, most high potential version of who they are, and then reflecting that back to them. Some people would say that when we see potential in others, it's actually us projecting onto them what we would do in the same situation. And I really don't believe that that's the case for me. I believe that I am seeing the truest essential nature of someone and trying to help them see what I see in the process. And so if I think about like how that applies to what I do now, if there's a transformation that people come to me for, they think they want to double their business. or grow their revenue. And that's fine. I'll market myself that way. It's fine for that to be the goal. And sometimes that is really what we do. What I find is that that's what most entrepreneurs are pre-programmed to say that they want, because that's what you're supposed to want. And many times, even if that's where we start, the client will guide the work towards something deeper, something more true to who they are, something more less shallow, something that's more authentic and deep and reflective of what they really hope for in the world, and less about money. Money is usually just a stand-in for something that is more important to them that they haven't gotten clear on yet. And I think that the transformation is going from, I want this goal that is an endpoint, to I want a way of being in running my business that feels good for an indefinite period of time. And it's going from like, I hope that I can reach this point so I can opt out, to I want to operate in a way that I don't feel the need to opt out. That's really the transformation that I think I help people through.
Dude, that's a very succinct way of what I have been chasing since I read 4 Hour Workweek. Like, that was it. That got me on the path, honestly. And then, like I said, Pat Flynn and the guys at Fizzle got me further along the path and made me that first dollar. But I only recently, maybe within the last year, realized that the goal is not to hit a number, sell, and then be good. And I was like, oh, if I could just get there, I'd feel so safe. I would feel so less stressed. And it's just struck me recently. And I'm so glad that you said that, because that is such a pervasive lie, that one day you will not have to work. And I mean, I've theologized that to a degree where it's like, look, there's never going to be a time where we're no longer earning by the sweat of our brow, so to speak. But what does that mean? And how do I even get there with the unknown of how the business might look, when I just want to escape the weight of that and get that freedom and that desire and that feeling of peace that I'm looking for as a business? And so actually, let me pause there for a second, because I want to know, like, what was that business for you? What was that feeling for you that's like, oh, coaching and executive coaching, and at this level? Like, why is this the business that you want to build long-term?
Yeah.
That will make you do the things you need to do it for 10, 5, 15 years.
Landing here, I think, has been a process of progressive surrender. And what I mean by that is, if I look back at my career path until this point, there was a lot of striving. There was a lot of that trying to hit a number type thinking in my mind. And the kind of climax of that then led me down this path was, I got a job offer to go to work for a really well-known author who I deeply respect and has been a mentor to me, as his kind of like chief of staff or COO, or kind of just running his whole everything. And I was going to leave. It was called ConvertKit at the time, now Kit. And that became the kind of reason for the conversation about me becoming COO and staying on and being in this much bigger role, running basically the whole business other than product at Kit, alongside my one of my best friends, Nathan Barry. And my decision to stay at Kit was probably the last big compromise I made on who I really am and what I really want underneath. And I did it in the name of hitting a number that I thought would allow me to hit the eject button forever. Now, I love Kit. I love Nathan. I love the team there. There was like a lot of authentic desires that I had for being there. But the core reason I stayed was I thought it would allow me to opt out of the game forever. And I try very hard not to be triggering online. I think it's a really pervasive sickness that we have as a society, that we try and trigger each other to get attention. And it's part of the reason that we have so much strife in the world, so much conflict between one another without the ability to listen, is we're constantly triggered. But the one thing I can remember that really triggered people that I've ever said online was, you think earning $1 million will change your life, but I'm here to tell you that you're going to have to go back to work a couple weeks later anyways. And that really made some people mad. And I understand why it did, because if you're starting from nothing, $1 million is a lot of money, and it is a lot of money. And I do believe that. And once you do the math on it, the number you have to hit to opt out, even just to make $60,000 a year, is a lot of money. It's like $2.5, $3 million. And the percentage of people who will ever have an outcome in life where they get $3 million at one time is near zero. And so the point of my tweet from a wholeness perspective was, it is a false idol to think if I just hit dollar amount, everything will get better. Because in my experience, it really doesn't. And I work with people who earn millions of dollars per year now. And I see the exact same kind of thinking and problems at the psychology and emotional level that I see in people who are not making very much money. And so all of that to come back to your question of how did I get into this? Why this business? Letting go of that dream for myself that was almost like, it's not an impossibility. You know, I did find myself in a situation where it might have been possible for me to put the $7 million in the bank to earn the $150,000 a year, or whatever it is I was shooting for. But I realized that it was a false idol for me, and that it was a way to keep me doing things that were not working for me. And so when I decided to leave Kit, it was the first act of progressive surrender towards, what is the way that I can work and sustain over a long period of time? And what am I truly gifted at versus what do I have to strive for? Was I good at being a COO? Yes. Did it feel good to be a COO? Absolutely not. I was burnt to a crisp by the time I left that role, through no one's fault but my own. And so over time, over the 18 months after that, it was like I did all of these things to try and hide from the fact that I probably already knew. Number one, that it was time to be an entrepreneur again. And number two, that if I go all the way back to my first business in 2012, it started as coaching. And I had this massive judgment about coach as profession. Had all of these preconceived notions about essentially it being some version of like toxic or full of crap or a Ponzi scheme or whatever. Like some combination of all of those things was what I held in my mind as what the field was made of. And so I had to confront the fact that those were ways of allowing me to hide from my best skill set, which is exactly that title, being a coach. And so I had to really get okay with calling myself a coach so that I could then go do the work that I do now. And the way I designed my practice is so that I can coach 2 days a week. I'm shifting that a little bit now, but from the beginning it was I coach Tuesdays and Thursdays so that I can do creative work Monday, Wednesday, Friday, really Monday, Wednesday, and have Fridays off. And that began to dictate who are the people that I can work with in such a way that I can earn a living working in that kind of schedule. And I had over a decade of experience working in this kind of creative entrepreneur world, creators, the creator economy, well before it was called that. And again, this is another act of surrender. I started my coaching practice saying, I'm going to work with climate tech entrepreneurs because that's a big enough mission. That's an important enough problem that it justifies being a coach. And again, I had to let that go and realize the place where I can be most of service is to creators that have scaled to this point where they have everything they once thought they wanted, and they still feel the exact same way. And so this is my unique little niche where I work with people who have usually millions of followers making millions of dollars a year and are struggling with the psychology of entrepreneurship and sustaining the success that they've built.
Man, there was so much in there, different dichotomies between how you feel and what you want and the decision making and who you are in relation to that and judgment. Man, I relate to so much of that. Like so much of the judgment of if I did this thing then. Like, man, that has stopped me from getting to, getting so much still even. So I'm glad you went into that. And I really appreciate you sharing all of that. I want to take a brief detour into what at this point I find boring, but a lot of people do want to hear.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the business briefly because, guys, Barrett has said that he's cool with an experiment I would like to run, which is I would like to give him all of the things I struggled with as a coach that eventually led me to not being able to get over $200,000 a year and quit the business while it was still making money. So I think you probably will get some value from that. But I also know that we'll get value from just hearing like the nitty gritty. You're actually doing this. Let me just see, like, for example, on your website, you're charging $3,750 a month for a bi-weekly call. Most coaches who are starting out, or even the ones who are making 100,000, 200,000 are like, that's impossible. Like, I could never do that. So would you walk us through your business, your offer, where you're finding leads, maybe what a sales process looks like, and just give us the 30,000-foot view of your business as a unit.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
So ChatGPT, my friend Chad, as my wife likes to call it, I was checking myself because I was having a conversation with a potential client recently, and they asked, where do you think you fall in terms of what you charge relative to other coaches of a similar caliber? And I said, well, I think that I'm probably somewhere in the like 85th percentile for all coaches. And there's definitely people who charge more than me. And then there's many people who charge less, obviously. So I went and tested that with ChatGPT, and I was like, no, actually, you're probably in the top like 0.5% in what you charge based on ICF data and all of this. That was a helpful kind of reality check for me in terms of, I think one of the key things I try and help people with is centering on what they have actually achieved versus whatever their inner narrative is. And so, I'm subject to that too. I'm subject to all of the same things that a normal human being is, of course. And I think it's easy for me to always be dangling a carrot out in front. Well, when I am able to do this, then, I'll be legit or whatever. And it was just a helpful reality check of like, oh, okay. So sure, there's people who charge more, but it's like not that many people relative to the industry. So first of all, I'm very grateful for that. Secondly, I do believe it reflects the value that I provide, but there's some important qualifiers on that. So I charge $37.50 a month for 2 hours of coaching. People get a regular time slot on my calendar every, 2 weeks, same day, same time. I coach on Tuesdays and Thursdays, 4 sessions a day. So technically my max clients is 16. I try and keep it to actually about 12. I find that I'm able to provide the best service at that level. So you can do, easy math, and 12 times $37.50 is $45,000 a month. That's roughly what I've stabilized at. I stay pretty full. People who have been coaches for a while may know that turnover is kind of unexpected. You never know when someone's going to renew versus when they feel like they've gotten what they came for. Although I am growing in a more intuitive sense. My problem has actually been people stick around a lot longer than I thought that they would. And so that creates some unpredictability in terms of, I figured it would be like an average of 9 months per client. It's turning out to be more like an average of somewhere north of 18 months. And I do 6-month contracts. So that has been an adjustment to where it doesn't quite fit the model. And it actually makes business development this is going to sound like a privileged problem, and it is, but it makes it a little challenging at times because I'm not really sure when I'm going to have availability. And so I need to always be marketing, but I also need to acknowledge the fact that if I don't have space, there's a little bit of a disservice I do to people if I say, hey, come apply to work with me. So it wasn't always that way, of course. Like I've been at this 2.5 years now full time. And at first I was working my butt off to get clients. So it's changed over that 2.5 years. Full load is about 12 people now, roughly $45,000 a month. Could I take more? Yes, I could take more. Would that lower my level of service and my satisfaction with my practice? Yes, it would. And $45,000 a month is a great business. So I feel like I found a nice equilibrium there. In terms of what I'm doing to sell, I do the simple system at first was that I downloaded every LinkedIn contact I had. I rated each person on 2 scores from 1 to 3. The first score was essentially how much does this person like me, and therefore how likely would they be to want to refer someone to me. And the second score was how much of an overlap between this person's network and my ideal client base is there. And I just did a simple multiplier between those 2 scores, and people who ranked a 9, so 3 and 3, 9, I reached out to first. And when I started my practice, I wasn't super clear on who my target market was. And so I didn't get a lot of referrals because it wasn't clear who people should refer. But that was my process. Every week I had a certain number of outreach I was trying to do, 10 to 15, and I just worked that system. I didn't get a lot of results at first, to be honest, but what it gave me was a discipline and learning from the feedback from people of, I'm not sure who to refer to you, or it's not clear what your value proposition is. It's not clear, how you work with people. And that's how I was able to refine what's on my coaching page now and what I tell people up front. Over time, what I learned was that the easiest way to sell is to demonstrate coaching. So my very simple system flywheel that worked quite well and that got me full was I went to conferences where my ideal clients were. I gave workshops, not keynotes. Ideally, I was giving a workshop to an advanced creator cohort. So I was looking for rooms where I could target a smaller group of people, but a more highly targeted group of people. So ideally, people earning at least 6 figures from their business and who had at least hundreds of thousands of followers. That's kind of like the target I was going for the ideal person in the workshop. And I would give about 20 minutes of content, just enough to get the conversation going. And then we'd go into live coaching mode. And I would bring people up to the front of the room and we'd coach live. And this feels like a magic trick to people because most people cannot fathom not knowing what's going to happen and doing that in front of a room of people. But what I found is it actually makes me more comfortable because that's the skill set I feel like I'm best at, even better than speaking and delivering content, which I think I'm okay at. And I could just be in flow rather than having to come up with what I think people want from me. And so I would do that. I would tell people how to find me at the end of the workshop. While I was at the conference, I would then host a private dinner for 10 to 12 people who were there. And that was the most highly targeted group I could find based on publicly available information. The speaker list, the attendee list. I'd have my executive assistant go do some research. And we would estimate based on followers and apparent business model, like who do we think is kind of in our market? No sales pitch, no agenda for dinner. It's just a peer level, deep conversation kind of thing, some light facilitation to get people to know each other. I would gather contact information at the end, establish a text message based relationship. And the only thing that was even remotely sales based was I would send everyone a voice note afterwards and just say, it was great to meet you. Here's something that I really connected with about our relationship. And for the people who actually this was true for, I would say, you're the type of person I started my business to serve. This is a zero pressure request, but I would ask that if you're ever looking for a coach, I hope you'll call me first. And that one change, sending that voice note versus not sending the voice note, 3x the number of people who reached out to work together. And that was the system. If I did that quarterly, that got me full. And then that allowed me to establish another layer, which is now what people probably see today from me, which is social media, podcast, newsletter, all of the stuff we think about as marketing. I didn't do any of that at first because that to me is the longest lead time, lowest leverage way to get clients. And I wanted to get full, not get famous. And that's an important distinction. So I got full and then I started working on the channels that are longer lead time, slower drip, higher scale. So that's been the system, and that pretty much keeps me full now with the addition of asking for referrals from current and past clients.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing in the way you did. And what you just said is so similar to John Meese. I don't know if you've met him. He was just on Nathan's show as well. He was on, I think maybe episode 4 of this podcast. And he's just like, just go sell out. I don't even have social media. Just go sell out. And then you're sold out coach. And then everything can flow from there. And I was reminded this week as well on a call I was on with a guy from LinkedIn. And he just said, don't be doing marketing. Just go sell. I was like, what? Don't I have to do all these things to get the eyeballs? He's like, no, just go find the people and see if they need your help. And that was so good for me and so clarifying for me because I do want to just market. I don't want to sell. And maybe we'll get into that. Actually, maybe that's a good segue right now. Maybe we can get into that. So again, I'm thinking maybe I will bring some of the problems that I identified from coaching. I do think it will probably have to be related to now, just in terms of like, how does this continue to look? Otherwise, it's going to be like hypotheticals. So I don't necessarily want to set this up such that like you're now just helping me, but I want to make this useful for people. So I'm just going to start with what I was going to start with. And if you want to lead this in any way, please feel free to take, all the permission you need for that. And like I'm willing to have light shined on the dark places so that I can grow, because I would rather be cut with truth than kindness, or niceness, I should say. So if you're cool with that, we'll dive in. So the first thing I wrote down was that we've already sort of touched on. I had an expectation that I needed to hit 7 figures as soon as possible, or that I was a loser because everyone else knew how to. And what I was truly looking for, you already touched on, which was I needed to get out of the game as soon as possible. This is relatable, I think, to people. Is there something that we can dive into here that might help?
Yeah, let's do it. And I'll just say that I find that in the specific like this, there is the universal, it's that old cliche. It's exactly how I write my newsletter. It's how I make my social media content. I take universal lessons from specific coaching sessions and I share them. Because if you are facing this, I guarantee hundreds of people listening to something like this are also facing it. So, all right. So let me start with, how is this showing up for you today?
I continue to look for quick answers and quick solutions because I do think that I've got what it takes, but there's a fear in there, and the sort of disconnect between knowing I've got it, wanting it because of, my desire is want to buy a house for the family. We're in the Pacific Northwest, all this kind of, the quote unquote need for the right reasons. And it makes me feel like I'm always missing something. Even now, I'm trying to build online in public to get up to a $60,000 a month agency so that I can pay myself $20,000 a month so that XYZ. And so it still exists today. And now it has me making decisions that are this feeling, like tight feeling, rather than just what do I want, like you were talking about.
Yeah. Okay. So you notice yourself still hanging on to, if I could just get to this place, it'll give me a feeling of freedom. It'll release some of this tension that I'm feeling right now. And in your body, where do you feel the tension?
It's in my gut. It's in like the center pillar of my chest, sort of lower chest area in the sternum.
Okay. And so those two areas, number one, there are a number of common areas that people often feel tension. It's jaw, throat, solar plexus, gut are usually the ones that show up. Sometimes shoulders and neck as well. And I don't know if this is universally true, but I do notice patterns in what each of those things mean. But I won't project that onto you. So what meaning do you make of those two locations in you carrying the tension?
Oh, interesting. I've thought a lot about, the body keeps the score and all this kind of stuff, but me putting my own ideas to that, I'm not sure. It feels like I'm trying to hold on to what I have, which isn't a lot, but it's like trying to grasp the safety of what I know, perhaps.
Okay. And part of what I think I hear you saying is not just grasping the safety of what you know, but grasping for safety in what you imagine other people know. Does that
Very
resonate?
much so.
Okay. And so I heard you say earlier, there's this feeling of like, I need to get to $1 million a year so that I'm not a loser and so that I know what everyone else knows. And I wonder, when you say what everyone, like the everyone else, who's the face of everyone for you?
It's literally everybody else looking in at me. Like I see the wall of faces looking in, going, we're all confident. We all know what we're talking about. You have all this stuff, but you're not confident. That must make you XYZ, which is, for me, the voice that I'm trying to use so that it has effect, and I'm trying not to believe too much, is that you're a loser. You'll never figure this out. And like your family will suffer because of your inability to get past the fear of man and do what your gut says to do.
Yeah. Okay. So you're a loser is a type of message that I hear a lot in coaching. It doesn't always have those exact words attached to it, but all of us have some version of the you're a loser thing going on inside. Some of them, for some people, it's like, you'll never be good enough. For some people it is, you're a piece of shit, or you'll never be loved. There's many different versions of this message that we internalize from different places. So I'm curious, for you, whose voice is it that's saying that to you? Is it yours, or is it coming from outside somewhere?
Yeah, it's definitely mine, because so much of what I'm dealing with and working on, and again, I've done a lot of work to this, but this particular thing, as well as hopefully we'll talk about in a minute, have been limiting factors to my business growth. But I'm like, oh, these are so personal. So hopefully people can relate to this. The voice is me, because I was the only person I could ever trust. Like everybody else around me was the child to my 5-year-old being the adult. And so when it's me, it's like, well, I better make sure that I'm the one putting myself down such that nobody else can come at me. Because when they do decide to be adults, it's just like thrash this and thrash that. And so I have always only bet on myself and have been terrified of other people. And so there's this weird dichotomy of, I don't want to have other people not like me, or, think that I'm less than, or ostracize me. So I'll do it for myself, even though I know I could be better, but it might be risky because other people would think that I'm trying to grab something that's not mine.
Okay, so there's this interesting juxtaposition between, in some ways, you only trust yourself to do what needs to be done. And in other ways, you're scared that in doing that, you'll somehow be exposed as a loser.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So how is that message or that idea that you might be a loser, how is that fueling you or serving you?
Ooh. I mean, I know it's not, but it obviously has to be. And the things that it's making me do are probably watching out. I'm very watchful. I'm very observant. I look for risk and I'm very risk tolerant, but I also am very good at not stepping into things that will have a high likelihood of risk anyway. It keeps me from doing outlandish things that other people would see. It keeps me from making major mistakes. And it does allow me to be very scrupulous with the work that I do. So, like, we almost always nail it. So, in those ways, it is serving me.
Yeah. Yeah, it probably, I hear you saying it like keeps a high standard. It means you make bets you know you can deliver on, and you probably look pretty put together and like you've got it all figured out when you do the things that you do, right?
Correct.
Okay, great. So I can relate to so much of this for what it's worth. What would be the opposite of being a loser in your mind?
Very interesting. Nothing's immediately coming up. I think it would be someone who is so confidently himself that when other people don't get it, he's loving towards them and not fearful and judgmental of them.
Okay. So the word that comes to me for that is acceptance. I don't know if that fits for you. Is there another word that fits that? Or is loving the right word? That's the word you used in the middle of that.
Yeah, my life goal right now is, is basically to be the guy who permeates so much love that everyone just like can't believe that that's possible. And I'm stopped by that because I'm worried about how other people will find me, take me, judge me if I do that. And so the opposite of a loser would just be the confidence to love and to get it wrong. So confidence, some acceptance, love, just a, coach, guide, whatever
Yeah.
that looks like. That's where my heart is.
Okay. So the confidence to love and the willingness to get it wrong is what I heard you
Yes.
say. So that would be the opposite of being a loser.
Yes.
Confidence to love and the willingness to get it wrong. So if you were to operate from the confidence to emanate love, radiate love, as you put it, and a willingness to get it wrong, how would that change the approach that you're taking right now in your business?
I would talk to people. Like I would talk to people about what I do. I would not be so scared to be like, hey dude, I think I can help you. Because I'm so worried that like, you're going to think I'm doing it for this reason. And then you're going to hate me and we're not going to be friends. But if I was just like, dude, I know I can help you, which is loving. And I know it could probably bless your business, which is loving. And if you think that I'm a loser and I don't do good work, then like, that's totally cool. How can I help you? Still, that would feel so good. And the content would probably flow. I wouldn't be so worried about the work that we do. Like, I don't really know if I can share this with another client because like maybe it's not good enough. It would just open up the sense that I can talk to people and I know I need to talk to people to do anything.
Okay, so let me pause you right there. Now, what are you feeling in your body?
Some openness, a little bit of lightness in the top of the chest,
Okay.
just almost as if the box has gone like this.
Okay. Can I share an observation?
Please.
So I saw your speech pattern picked up its pace. You actually stood up taller as you were talking about that. And literally, I think your shoulders came back. And so it's interesting to me that that's what you also experienced internally, because what I observed was you changing your demeanor as you talked about how it would be to show up that way. And I wonder what you make of that.
I make that I am scared to be that way and looking for the answer to get over this fear. And yeah, like I see this. I don't know what else to make of it other than like, yes, I want that. I want to operate in that all the time. And oh no, like, why can't I?
Yeah.
And so I get back into that judgment.
Yeah. Okay, great. So the brain comes back online, which is fine. That's what
Yes.
always happens. So, okay. So there you are, this like you're a loser thing is protecting you in some way. It seems pretty obvious, right? It's protecting you from having that confirmed. And in some ways, you're pre-selecting for proof that that may be true so that you don't have to operate from this place of emanating love, radiating love, and a willingness to look silly or be wrong or to fail. So I want to just run a test real quick. Is that okay?
Please.
If I told you that operating from this place of openness that you just described would guarantee that some number of people will think you are a loser, they will definitely think that you are a loser, no matter what you do. How does that land with you?
There's a small voice that goes like, yeah, that's cool because as long as you're loving. But the other voice is like, yeah, dude, I don't know. Like, I just don't know about that. And there's just this hesitancy to step fully into that, even though, and like I'm saying all this stuff, and I'm just, for my own pride's sake, and, you know, Lord have mercy, I'm just like so much better at all this than I was and talking to a lot of people, and I'm getting there. But it's very curious to me that this is a sticking point still. So I want to like give myself a little bit of credit, and also dive back in.
Can I just add one thing real quick?
Yeah.
But of course, it's a sticking point. Like if you think about how we're wired, what we are wired for, we are wired to belong from a place of getting our fundamental needs met so that we literally don't die. Like that's what our bodies and brains are wired for. We're living in an environment where that threat is no longer what it once represented. Like it's not actually true that you might die if someone thinks you're a loser. But the way your, caveman body and brain are wired is such that if you are looked at as a loser, you might be kicked out and you might actually not be able to eat, drink, live, and you will go away. Like that's what, so from an empathy standpoint, from me to you, it's like, of course this is hard. Of course this is hard. It's like how we're wired to not take risks like this. And so you're having to override every piece of programming that's like hardwired in there and literally build a way around that so that you can go and do the work you're made to do.
Yeah.
So of course you are. How does that feel just to have the empathy reflected back and to know that it's like, there's not something wrong with you here?
There's a lack of trust, not because of you, but because like, yeah, dude, I've been coaching before. I've done this. I've been at men's groups. Nobody really gets it. And I know that that's another layer of all of this. And I know it's true. So I'm not discounting that. It has definitely lessened the feeling of that sort of stomach midsection pit. So it does lessen that, which is very interesting to note.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I'm reflecting on this, and I will take my brain out of it in a sec. I'm reflecting on how this shows up for me wanting to carry the weight of coaching when I had the coaching business, and for me wanting to carry the weight of growing some business, because I want to grow this business so bad, like so bad, man. But to do that, I necessarily have to get through this because I have to reach out to people and fear being misunderstood. Because I might make an offer that people are like, dude, that is whack, and you're a loser for thinking that, because some people aren't going to like me because of that. So just to like help everyone else, because I know we're still podcasting, to help everyone else get there, it's like, this is why this is so important to me, because I want this outcome to bless my family, to feel free to work indefinitely and not hope there's an endpoint. And it's mostly this fear of man. It's mostly this fear of being judged. It's mostly this like, I know what I need to do, but don't make me talk to people. Don't make them see me while I'm doing this. And so anyway, just to like pin that again so people understand where we're going.
That's great. And we'll try and make sure we bring it back to the audience here as we as we reach a conclusion on this topic, although we're not going to like solve it today, and that wouldn't be the goal anyways.
No, of course
We're
not.
working with it.
Yeah.
So you know what you want, and you know what you need to do. And this is what I see repeatedly. Most people know what they need to do already. There isn't actually a hack, strategy, tactic, or anything else, playbook, that's going to clarify more what they need to do. Sometimes that's the case, but it's very, very rare in my experience. What is the case is that we are not yet ready to pay the emotional cost of doing it. That's the thing that holds us back. And that's exactly what I see happening here is, you're a very smart individual. You're a thoughtful person. You're put together. You've got it, a lot of things figured out. You've got this podcast. You host beautiful conversations. It's not a problem of knowing what to do. So would you be willing to try one more experiment with me?
Yes.
Okay. Would you be willing to close your eyes? And I'll close my eyes with you, so I'm not just staring at you. And if the audience is watching on YouTube, well, you can close your eyes too if you'd like, and try the exercise with us. And so I'll invite you to either get square in your seat or square on your feet. Just let the kids be there. It's okay. You're a family man and people know, and it's beautiful that they're in the background.
There we go. Sorry, the dog's clicking.
So
right, dropping in.
Close your eyes and get in tune with this feeling in your stomach, in your solar plexus, this tension, this like place of pressure that is related to this fear of feeling like a loser, being seen to be a loser. And almost imagine like swimming within that feeling, floating within that feeling, and imagine it expanding almost to the point of like explosion, not in a bad way, but explosion into dissipation and evaporation. And ask this energy within you, what is it that you would need to do so that you could dissipate and be free and not carry this tension or energy that you've been feeling? And if there's an answer that comes up, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, the first thing that's coming up is that there's a sense of like, you just got to do like 10 of the hard things you don't want to do, and it'll be good.
Okay.
And it's not the feeling necessarily, but it's like, that would be the unlock potentially.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm hearing that as maybe like an additional part or energy in there that's saying, I know the path, I know the path, I know the path. And so let's just acknowledge that part and move it aside for a moment. Come back to this energy. So let's ask it a different form of the question, which is, in the moment when someone inevitably calls you out as a loser or a fraud or an imposter or whatever version of it that someone projects back onto you based on how they react to your radiating of love out into the world, which can be triggering for some people. Imagining that moment. In that moment, what would this feeling in the pit of your stomach need from you? How does it need you to take care of it in that moment?
It would probably need a couple of good deep breaths. It would probably need to remind myself why I'm loving and who I'm loving on behalf of, sort of on the spiritual side of things for me. It would probably need me to take just some attention and be like, hey, it's totally good. It's okay. This doesn't matter who you are. This is not an identity thing. Basically, some sweetness and some love to this piece itself.
Yeah. Okay, great. So it needs you to actually radiate the love inwards is what I'm hearing in that.
Yes.
It needs you to take a moment and offer some reassurance to yourself. Like, this is not a reflection of me. This is a reflection of me radiating love into the world, and this was to be expected. Something to that effect is kind of what I'm hearing.
Yep.
So if this energy within you knew that it could trust adult, capable Kurt to do that, what would this energy be free to do? How would it transform or move within you?
It would probably become like super fuel.
Oh, okay. In what way?
It feels like it's going to just go into the rest of the body and propel it forwards, rather than feel just like stuck in this tiny little cylinder in the sternum. It's like, no, we like use this, like not this feeling, but use the energy stored here, because if you can put it in the right way and it can be an integrated part, like this is just going to make things better.
Okay, great. So we're going to pause here for a moment. Before we do that, I would just ask you if you could radiate compassion and empathy to this energy within you, and to let it know that if it ever wants to have a conversation about this, like, you're here for it and you will listen.
Yeah, got it.
Okay, is it feeling all right? Feel good with completing here?
Yep.
Okay, so now just take a moment to connect with your breath before you come back to the conversation with your eyes open, and just center back in your body, and then we'll rejoin each other. Okay, so let me just kind of highlight what we were doing there for the audience, because there's a version of that I noticed people respond to me very negatively with, which is like, this effing guy, you know? Um, and this was part of my fear of the coaching field, was exercises that work, but that are viewed a certain way, and all of the judgment that will come back towards me in response to that. And so if you're having that reaction in the audience, I want you to know I'm okay, and it's okay if you're having that reaction. Because what I have learned is that this particular modality of working in coaching is extremely effective for moving stuff like this. It's based in Richard Schwartz's work called Internal Family Systems, really healing therapeutic modality that's often used in therapy settings, but now is also being transformed for coaching as well, for forward-looking and business-oriented tasks like this. It's a really powerful tool set, and it's really beautiful to see the way that it transformed people's inner world. So that's what I'm working with here. That's the basis for the conversation we were just having. So now, coming back into the conversation, what do you notice about what you were seeing internally with that, Kurt?
There's a couple things. Number one is that even just doing that is giving me some level of peace, which is super helpful. I'm also noticing that I don't think I noticed this enough. It's painful to notice, and I've done a lot of work on it, so I don't really want to notice it because I've got this idea in my head that, like, it should be good now. But in spending the time with it, it's like, oh yeah, like this too probably will never be the thing that's fully ever gone, but I think it can be worked with rather than hidden from and just like, don't look. And that feels very freeing. Like there's a lot of potential just having gone back here for the first time, maybe a couple of years since I've even like tried to do this kind of work. So thank you. And it's like, okay, the question that comes up now is like, okay, well, how are we gonna do this in between, like, let's say in between coaching sessions, if you're coaching someone, what is my work now to integrate and to move forward so that, because I'm thinking about like my specific business problem that I would want to bring to this is, again, we talked about expectations, hitting 7 figures, the weight, but it's really like, I want to go send 10 DMs to people and just be like, I think I can help you. Would this be something we could work together with, without going, oh no, but he's got this size of company, and oh no, like I get into this shell.
Yeah.
How do I integrate this and be able to work with this feeling we've just identified into doing what I know needs to be done?
Perfect. Okay. So number one, it's the perfect question for you to be asking, because that is the only way that it actually gets integrated. And number two is, I have to first acknowledge that my belief as a developmental style coach is that outer transformation begins with inner transformation, that you actually can't get the external result without first working internally on the things that are holding you back from getting it already. So if you, for some reason, fundamentally don't believe that, then that's okay. We just have a different way of working on these things, and this just may not be as relevant to you. So I just want to acknowledge that. So here's how this would work in my experience. You say, I want to send 10 DMs. You go make a list of the people, you draft a message, and then you get right up to that like cliff where you got to jump on your hang glider and go out over the open space. And this feeling comes up. I'm betting it's the same energy that comes up in that moment. Example of this for me that I've learned, that is exactly what you're saying, that it never goes away. I just have to learn to work with it, is right before I speak, I have a progression that I go through. The closer and closer I get to the day of speaking, I get more and more kind of like tense about needing to practice. And like often that leads to procrastination, because the practice is the very thing I need, but it's also the very thing I'm scared of, because what if I suck? The night before, I need to be like holed up. I need to eat a healthy meal because I get more nervous. I want to work on my slides and fiddle with those. I want to practice again. I'm not going to sleep well that night, no matter how hard I try. So the goal is just to try and rest, even if I can't sleep. I'll probably wake up earlier than I want to. I will wake up nervous, kind of like game day type energy. I'll need to practice again to settle some of those nerves. I need to get food because my tendency will be for my stomach to be cramping and not want to eat. I need to lessen my caffeine intake rather than ramping it up because that does the opposite of what I need, even though it's what I think I want. And then about an hour before, my armpits will start sweating, my heart rate will increase, and that will continue all the way up until about 5 minutes after I get on stage, after which I'm in a state of flow and I'm really enjoying it. All of the adrenaline is released. And then afterwards, I'll be exhausted and I'll need rest and alone time. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it would have been easy for me to tell a story that like, therefore I'm not meant to speak because I have this reaction to speaking. Well, it turns out that's not the case. Most people experience some version of what I experience. And the difference now is that I've learned this is the ride. And my job is to recognize where I am on the ride and to embrace the ride rather than trying to fight it. It's like if you're fighting the ride of a roller coaster, it will give you a headache because you're tensing in response to G-forces, essentially. There's a version of this that happens in this moment where you're looking over the edge of the cliff with your hang glider. I'm about to send a DM. So the work would be, can you notice it in the moment? And can you do a mini version of what we just did? Okay, what does this part need from me right now? What this part needs is it needs to know that if this person responds and says, ha, you idiot, I would never work with you. You're a loser, which is not what's going to happen 99.999% of the time. But it needs to know that if that is what happens, that you're going to take care of yourself, that you're going to radiate that love back inwards and reassure yourself, maybe go get like a cuddle from your partner or your kids and like do some soothing so that you know you're resettled on my baseline is I have a beautiful family, a partner who loves me. I have a home that I live in. I am safe. I am not being threatened with death right now, even though it feels like it. And to like settle your nervous system before going and doing a bunch more stuff. And my bet is based on doing a lot of this type of work with people is that if you can do a mini version of that in the moment, then it turns back into its other job, which is to be the source of the radiating love. And I think that's how you integrate. And over time, it becomes a recognizable pattern that you can work more with and partner with in the moment rather than resisting, hiding, pushing into the shadow, where it's silently showing up as this belief of I'm a loser.
Dude, I can't believe that you took that like just in the exact amount of time. Like I'm shocked that we went from that into an actionable thing that I was just like, oh, I can totally do that. And then that becomes part of my flow. So the timing was perfect. I'm really grateful that you decided to do that with me. I thought, of course, yesterday in my head, I was like, I've got like 10 things I struggle with. We'll just da-da-da-da-da. And it's like, no, this is just the big one because it doesn't matter what I say. The feeling beneath it and the lie beneath it is probably the same with all of them. And I bet every single one of the people listening right now has something like that they might be able to feel right now, that they've probably tapped into listening to this. And maybe if they know it's part of the ride, like, my goodness, dude, I know we're at time, so I'll finish this up real quick. When I had the thought that I needed to make it, like, of course, that was the thing that I was going after all the time. And I thought that I could just like crunch enough, I'd get there and then I could release. But this whole new understanding with this conversation, with kind of that realization I told you about, like within the last year, it's like, oh yeah, life is the roller coaster. It's not about crunching and grinding enough so that I can then release forever. It's about these mini ups and downs because otherwise I'm way up and I'm way down. It's, you get into this whole manic depressive sort of thing if you take it too far. So this is so valuable, man. I really appreciate you going into that. Any final thoughts before we find out where to find out more about you?
No, I just say like, this is what I love about coaching. Like what a beautiful conversation for us to get to have and what a like serious honor it is for you to invite me in that way. Every time this happens, it makes me tear. Like I have tears in my eyes because there's so few spaces in the world where it's okay to say, this is what's really going on for me. And that to me is what coaching opens up for people. If we really do it well, if we honor our role, if we honor the craft that we are supposed to hone as coaches and really take it seriously like a profession, we can hold the space for people, which is very different from holding the stuff for people. And what we just did is we created this third thing between us, which is the space that can hold this thing that you're carrying. And it's just the most beautiful privilege. Like the antidote for me to what if people think I'm a huckster if I say I'm a coach is, but look at this beautiful thing. And if you could watch this conversation and you walk away thinking he's an idiot, I will never trust him, then I don't know what to tell you. And that I hear you, and that's not about me.
Yeah, man, I came, I was gonna say I came up through, it sounds like a gang thing. I started doing a lot of this work in men's groups, and it was all about the container. It was all about creating that space. And I've often thought, as we see, there's not a lot because I live in a smallish town, but the people who don't have a home and are on the streets, I'm like, we don't need government. We need men's groups. We need coaching. We need space for these people to feel and process. And so this has been such a wonderful reminder that groups, that safe spaces, that coaching is, like you said, like this sacred space, and nobody gets it, especially in our weird culture today. So thank you for opening that up. Thank you for being willing to go there for me and with me. And yeah, man, where should people find out more about you now that they've seen a little bit of this and follow along on your journey?
Yeah, so there's two key places. I write a newsletter called Little Leadership Lessons that comes out every Saturday morning. I basically take a coaching session like this with a client. I scrub it of all identifying details, and I turn it into a virtual coaching session over my newsletter. And so if you enjoyed listening to this, you will definitely enjoy my newsletter. And you can find that at barrettbrooks.com. Right at the top, you can subscribe. And then if you're an entrepreneur who is making millions of dollars a year, I don't know how many of those folks will be in your audience, and you're challenged with the psychological and emotional barriers to sustaining that success that you've achieved, then you can apply to work with me at barrettbrooks.com/coaching.
We'll put that all in the show notes. Barrett, man, thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Pleasure. All right, guys, we'll be here next week with another episode of The Real Coach Show. See you then.